People don't stop listening all at once. They stop listening selectively. They hear the first voice that agrees with them and decide it must be right. Proverbs 18:17 warned about this long ago, saying the first to speak always seems right until someone else is allowed to speak at all. But most people never wait for that second voice. They stop the process early and call it clarity. Proverbs 12:15 noticed this pattern clearly, saying the way people choose often feels right to them before they ever listen to advice. That order matters. Feeling right comes first. Listening comes later, if it comes at all. Proverbs 18:2 records what follows when that pattern repeats. Understanding stops feeling useful, and speaking starts to feel safer. Opinions feel like protection. Correction feels like interference. Proverbs 19:27 warns that when people stop listening to instruction, they don't stay where they are. They drift away from knowledge without realizing it. And the drift doesn't feel dangerous. It feels confident. Nothing feels safer than a voice that never challenges you. Selective listening doesn't start with refusal. It starts with preference. People don't decide to ignore others outright. They begin by favoring voices that feel familiar and safe. Agreement feels efficient. It saves energy. It reduces tension. Listening to people who already agree feels productive, even healthy. Over time, that preference turns into a habit. Certain voices get welcomed quickly. Others slowly stop being invited in at all. And because the shift feels practical, even responsible, most people never question it. This behavior isn't new. It didn't begin with technology, algorithms, or social media. It shows up anywhere people get to choose what they hear. Proverbs noticed this pattern early. It points out that the first voice always seems right, not because it is, but because it hasn't been tested yet. That detail matters. Truth usually doesn't arrive alone. It needs comparison, friction, a second voice that complicates things. Selective listening removes that process. It ends the evaluation early and replaces it with confidence. Once people start trusting agreement more than examination, listening changes shape. Proverbs observes that people often feel right before they ever listen to advice. That order matters. Feeling right comes first. Listening comes later, if it comes at all. And once certainty arrives early, correction has very little room to land. As agreement takes on this role, groups begin to narrow quietly. People gather around voices that sound familiar. Conversations get easier, less friction, less interruption. That ease feels like progress. It feels like maturity. But something important is being traded. When everyone sounds alike, blind spots grow. And because there's less tension, fewer people notice. Proverbs points out how rare it becomes to stay close to correction, not because correction disappears, but because it stops being welcomed. Correction slows things down. It complicates certainty. It introduces the possibility of being wrong. Selective listening avoids that cost. It trades growth for ease, and ease is persuasive. It feels like wisdom when it's really just relief. People begin confusing calm with health. Fewer disagreements must mean progress. Less friction must mean maturity. But silence doesn't test ideas. It preserves them. When instruction stops, people don't fall apart. They drift. Drift doesn't feel like rebellion. It feels like settling in, getting used to things being quiet. Silence doesn't just remove noise. It removes resistance. Without resistance, certainty doesn't get refined. It hardens. People stop practicing how to hear something difficult, and like any unused skill, listening weakens quietly. People still hear constantly, but only what fits. They mute what unsettles them, skip what challenges them, follow what affirms them. Over time, they stop noticing what's missing because the feed feels full. The absence doesn't register as absence, it registers as peace. Nothing feels broken yet, nothing feels extreme, but listening is no longer protecting anyone from error. It's protecting certainty instead, and certainty grows fastest when no one interrupts it. By this point, listening is still happening. People haven't stopped hearing voices. They've just stopped being corrected by them. Nothing new breaks through anymore. Everything gets filtered quickly. If it fits, it stays. If it challenges, it fades. And because the process feels efficient, it never feels dangerous. When people stop listening to instruction, they don't collapse, they stray, slowly, quietly, away from words of knowledge, not because knowledge disappears, but because nothing is allowed to interrupt certainty anymore. Confidence feels complete. People feel informed, calm, settled. They don't feel closed off, they feel finished. There's no expectation that listening might change anything. It's there for confirmation, not correction. And when listening stops correcting, it stops protecting. Nothing announces this shift. There's no argument to point to, no moment to rewind, no clear decision anyone remembers making, just a gradual quiet where challenge used to be, a steady confidence that hasn't been tested in a long time. Listening didn't disappear, it narrowed, and once it narrowed enough, awareness followed. People still hear plenty of voices, they just hear fewer truths, and because everything still feels normal, the loss goes unnoticed. That's where the pattern leaves you, not in noise, not in chaos, in quiet certainty.